The theme for today's service is changing one's focus or perspective, not necessarily changing oneself. So rather than becoming somebody different, kind of a shortcut is to just focus on something else or change your perspective. And so I looked at our list of musical offerings, and I found this one again by Eugene Scott. It's an original composition. It's called A Sound Bath. And I think we played this once about a year ago, so it hasn't been in the cycle for a while. And I wanted to mention the history behind sound baths a little bit. My wife teaches yoga, and she likes to have music for Shavasana at the end, where you lie down and relax. And I always find these really great songs for her, but they have lyrics. And she always tells me that lyrics in a yoga studio aren't that great because it pulls you out, and you start focusing on the message and what the person's saying and what does it mean, and they really want you to focus on the sound. And so, no lyrics. So a sound bath is written to immerse oneself in sound and to feel the sound. So it's a different kind of composition. It's meant to be immersive. And so I really like this by Eugene Scott.
Hello, OCBC Sangha. I invite you to take in some notes and take in some breaths.
So just like the Beatles, he saved the great chord for the end. The Beatles always did that. They always saved the greatest chord for the end of the song. So, when you listen to a sound bath, it's not really what does it mean, but how did it feel? So it's just it's a shift in the way we look at things. So thank you very much, Eugene. I really think that's beautiful. I tease him. Someday he'll actually be able to play it live. So we're going to read the Eightfold Path to Happiness out of our service book. Linda begged me to please read slowly today. She says I always read too fast. We'll talk about that later. But our Eightfold Path to Happiness is kind of unique. It emphasizes a lot of right view, the mind, ignorance, not being prejudiced. So all 8 have this orientation towards perspective and focus. So if you could please join me in Gasho. The teachings of the Buddha help us to understand the oneness of all life. To lead us in the right direction, the Buddha provided us with the Eightfold Path, right views, to keep free of prejudice and superstition and to see the true nature of life, right thoughts, to turn our minds away from violence and hatred, right speech, to refrain from harmful talk and to use our words wisely, right conduct, to see that our deeds come from peace and goodwill, to grow every day in the Buddha's teachings, right livelihood, to try to earn our living in such a way that we avoid causing suffering, right energy, to use our energies to promote the overcoming of ignorance and destructive desires, right mindfulness, to cherish a good mind, for all that we think and do has its roots in the mind, right meditation, to study the teachings of the Buddha and to practice them to the best of our abilities. May the presence of the Buddha, who said that he would live in his teachings, be our guide. May we follow this path until we too realize nirvana. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you very much. I read that as slow as I could, and it almost killed me. So before we get started, I wanted to mention how gorgeous the flowers are on the Naijin. We're getting a lot of help, I think on Fridays, to set up the flowers. Reverend Dr. Wondra goes to the flower shop early in the morning and gets boxes of fresh flowers. And then we're having help arranging the flowers by the 2 Janets, Janet Arima, Janet Sakahara, and also Karen Nakagiri. So I wanted to thank them for that. And I also want to mention the osanae today. It was going to be lemons, apples, and oranges, but I wanted an apple for lunch, and I only had 2 apples, and it has to be symmetric. So the apples got pulled. So we have lemons and oranges, and the reason why I brought lemons is I want to change, if you have lemons, make lemonade. So we're going to try to do that today. I'm going to try to make lemonade out of lemons. So I wanted to talk today about life at 30 miles per gallon. You guys probably know this because I can't hide it very well, but I'm very, very type A. I'm a very type A person. I haven't mellowed out or calmed down at all in 22 years. I'm exactly the same person I was when I came to OCBC in 1999. But I do think I've changed my focus. The focus of my life, the meaning of my life is different. So instead of obsessing on unhealthy things, I now obsess on healthy things. So I don't really think the spiritual path is that much different than the secular one. It's the same mechanisms at play. And I've been taught that the Buddha really wasn't trying to change who we are. He was just trying to change our direction in life. And so, even as a minister, it's hard for me to sit on the Naijin, like Reverend Wonder right now, sitting perfectly still. That's hard for me. That's hard for me. So what I want to do today is share with you a true personal story. I like these because I lived it. I know it's true. I know it happened. I don't have to memorize it or learn it. And I was going to say that this is an example or an analogy, but I think this is actually the mechanism of how we can make great change in our life, in everyday life. So I had an epiphany in traffic, and I wanted to share it with you. So instead of trying to instead of focusing on ETA, estimated time of arrival, like all the navigator apps do, I'm focusing on miles per gallon now. And so I'm hyper-focusing still, and I'm still type A, but my driving and my state of mind is completely shifted just by obsessively focusing on miles per gallon instead of estimated time of arrival. And I wanted to say, this is how you can learn the ways of Buddhism. Waze is a navigator app. Okay. I also am very corny. So this is one of my favorite comic strips. It kind of shows the difference maybe between Shin Buddhism and monastic Buddhism. It says, if only mindfulness interrupted our life on the left as much as life interrupts our mindfulness. So if you try to sit in meditation, things pop in your head all the time, and it's hard to stop it. But I think our approach as Shin Buddhists is to have mindfulness break through our everyday life, to realize what's important, to change our focus, and have this awareness throughout the day. So it's kind of a different way of practicing, and it's kind of out of necessity because we're everyday people, we're moving around. I read a book on Zen Master Dogen once, and the first thing he said was, you have to find a quiet place to practice. And I was like, okay, we're done. I mean, I live next to a fire station, and all the dogs on my street bark, and that was when my kids were 8 and 10 years old. There's no quiet, calm place in my house. So I just thought that was funny. I thought only a male monastic bachelor would lead with that. I mean, one thing that I shared my talk with somebody, and he said, oh, this is about getting rid of your monkey mind. So the monkey mind is the mind that's constantly jumping from tree to tree, always being hyper. And I think in the West, the idea is you can get rid of that. And so the idea is it's kind of like a video game. Your job is to go in and knock these guys out. Stop thinking about this, stop thinking about that, and to clear your mind. But I think, for myself, that is very, very difficult to do. It may be possible, but there's also an alternative. There's an alternative to that, is have these monkeys line up and focus on something else. If you give them something to do, they won't be jumping around and looking for trouble as much. I have a grandchild right now named Torin. If I give him a toy, we're good. But if I leave him to his own devices, he's crawling through the kitchen and playing in the dog's water. So, you just have to give him something to focus on. So I wanted to introduce you to this. These are navigator apps. And I'm also my wife calls me geographic dyslexia. I get lost a lot when I drive. I've even done things where if I take the 405 North to go to Nishi, then when I go home, I get on the 405 North because that's the way I came. But I forget, I have to reverse everything. 405 North becomes 405 South. So those are the kinds of mistakes I make. One time I was supposed to go to I was supposed to go to Pasadena and the lady for a job interview, and the lady on the phone told me to take the Ventura Freeway. And so I took the Ventura Freeway, that's what she said. And I was almost at Santa Barbara. I passed Camarillo, and I thought, there's no way the UCLA Bruins play in the Rose Bowl in Santa Barbara. And so I had to call them on my phone, and then she said, yeah, you should have taken, I think it's the LA, the other direction. And my dad could not believe that I did that. And I didn't get the job. I was like an hour and a half late. But she said Ventura, and that's what I took. East and West mean nothing to me. So when you take these apps, they tend to hyper-focus on time of arrival, and they give you lots of different choices. And also, I had an iPhone, and so I would have to hold it and look at it. And I found out through experience that if you have a phone in one hand, you're going to get a ticket in the other hand. So, even if you're just holding it to talk on the phone, a friend of mine at work told me his iPhone was on his dashboard, and he grabbed it, and he put it on the console, and he got pulled over, and he got a ticket. And he went to court to fight it. And he said, so if it was my wallet or a book or a candy bar, it's legal. But because it was an iPhone, it's illegal. And the judge said, yes, you're guilty, pay the fine. So I even read on the internet, it might be an urban legend, that somebody got one of these tickets. They were on their phone waiting in a drive-thru at Starbucks. So, you cannot hold your phone, especially in Westminster. I got a ticket in Westminster. So what I did is I thought it was unfair that I got a ticket because I was driving a Yaris, right? That just seemed blatantly unfair. So I'm an extremist. I went out and I bought in 2018, I went out and bought a Honda CR-V. And what's really cool, you plug in your phone, and it has Apple CarPlay. And I like that because it looks just like my phone. So I can do heads up now. I can completely Spotify. I can do Waze on my dashboard. And so it really helps me a lot. So here is my Spotify. I love listening to Spotify in my car. And then when I do Waze, this is an example of how it hyper-focuses on routes. And it'll say things like this, I think is ridiculous from a computer science point of view. 35 minutes, 36 minutes, or 37 minutes. Which one do you want to take? And when I go home from OCBC, heading south on Beach Boulevard, I swear, it wants me to get on the 405 south at Edinger or Center Drive, and it wants me to take the 405 south and get off at Brookhurst. And the reason why is I could save a minute. I mean, it's just nuts. So this is very triggering to me. It's encouraging me to drive fast, make a lot of lane changes, try to beat red lights. And I never beat the traffic. I think this is another talk. The traffic is this massive web of causes and conditions, and there's literally nothing you can do to beat the traffic. People drive by me now fast, and I'm always meeting them at the next stoplight. So I feel like I'm an enlightened driver now. I had a breakthrough. So this is another one. It could take you an hour and 1 minute, or it could take you an hour and 5 minutes. But the faster way has 3 policemen, and the slower way has 1 policeman. So there's a lot of choices going on Waze when you decide to come to church. And the other thing I don't like about Waze, because it hyper optimizes, is if there's an accident on the 5 North coming from Vista, it'll tell me to take this off-ramp and save like 20 minutes. But every car got the same information on Waze, and we all meet at the off-ramp. So it just doesn't work. It's screwing up traffic patterns. It's distorting traffic. A lot of people are using neighborhoods now for cut-throughs, so it doesn't work great. So when I have my Waze up, I tend to focus on this number down here. So I hyper-focus on, I got to get there in 9:45 or sooner. And it really changes the way I drive. I focus on my speed, and I really try to get away from bad traffic. So when I drive, the first thing I do when I'm worrying about estimated time of arrival, avoid Prius at all cost. If you see a Prius or a gardening truck, you get around them immediately. They're going to go slow. They're the worst. They will poison your ETA. So they're the worst. So Prius, lane change. A yellow light, you got to accelerate, right? That means speed up. That's what yellow lights mean. A green light, every time I hit a green light, I'm saving a minute getting to church. Red light, very difficult. Waiting. I'm losing. And that little clock down there is moving while I'm stuck at the red light. Lane changes, I said, are strategic maneuvers to try to get that little bit of advantage. And then I used to do this. The look when I pass slow drivers, that condescending, superior look, I just go. I always have to look at slow drivers and give them that look, like. And then uphill, I've got to speed up, right? If there's any uphill driving, I got to accelerate because I got to keep on the pace. So I didn't want to go into all the computer science of this, but it says that our navigation apps is making driving and traffic unmanageable. The proliferation of apps like Waze, Apple Maps, and Google Maps is causing chaos. So, it's an algorithm, but everybody's using it at the same time, and when it reroutes, it causes massive traffic problems. And the other thing it does to me is it wants me to take a detour when I'm in downtown LA on side streets, but I don't know the neighborhood. And if you follow Waze off that, sooner or later, you'll be convinced that Waze knows what it's doing and everything's okay, but you could go into all kinds of weird places before you come back to save 2 minutes. So I wish I could go into Waze and say, I only care about a 10-minute or 15-minute savings. I don't want to know every little second or tick I can get. So this is actually my dashboard. And I noticed instead of looking at ETA, I could look at this number. It's right there. Average fuel. So I just got this a couple weeks ago. I went over 30 miles to the gallon in city driving. And on the way to church this morning, because there wasn't that much traffic, 31. I hit 31. So my driving's completely changed. I'm still obsessing on a number, but it's a different number. And it's a better number. It's a safer number. And it's a number that makes me a nicer person. And it's a number that I actually can have control over. So I come to church now completely relaxed. And when I pull in, I give the look because I've got 31 miles per gallon. My son has a hybrid. No, he has a Bolt, all-electric car. And I told him I'm getting 30 miles to the gallon city, 35 miles to the gallon highway, and he couldn't believe it. So now when I drive and I see a Prius, it's an ally. So I like to get behind slow Prius now because if there's fast cars that are mad, they're mad at the Prius. They're not mad at me. So it's like a neat way to kind of camouflage what you're doing. You get behind a Prius and you just kind of draft all the way in. So now they're my ally. Yellow lights are great because I coast. So most of my mileage is coming from coasting up to a red light. So I see a yellow light and it's great. I can take my foot off the accelerator and just coast in. And my miles per gallon go to like 80, right? Because I'm not using any gas. Green light, I stay in the sweet spot of 43 miles per gallon. That seems to be the sweet spot. Red light, I usually just sit and admire my MPG. And I have nobody looking at me. I'm not staring at slow drivers anymore. Lane changes now, I only lane change to avoid tailgaters. I had a really fast Buick, I don't know what it was, maybe it was a Cadillac on my tail coming in this morning. And I just move over so they could go by. So now I just lane change to get people off my rear bumper. And like I said, I have the look now because I confidently have broken 30 miles per gallon. I hit 31. And then uphill's great because you can coast downhill. So instead of getting frustrated, I just know there's a huge payoff on the other side of that hill. So it's great. So I found this image on the internet that I really liked a lot. There's a statue, I can't remember what it was, it might have been India or Thailand, and it's always covered with monkeys. And most of the pictures have the monkeys whispering in the Buddha's ear and crawling on his head, and they're sitting on his top knot. But I really like this one. You know, he's just nurturing and holding his calm little monkey mind. So he's learning to live with it. It doesn't go away, but it just changes its personality and how it's expressed in his everyday life. So this is kind of me now. My monkey is kind of my friend, my monkey mind, and I've given it something constructive to focus on. And it is really, really, I mean, it's astounding how I feel and the way my driving is now just by changing my focus. It's just unbelievable. I used to be frustrated. I would complain about traffic. I was always angry at drivers. But now, I mean, it's just a joy. I just am calm and relaxed. And it's just a simple change of focus is all it takes. And I did have a relapse. I was driving on miles per gallon. I started out on ETA. I went to miles per gallon for about a month, and then I reverted back to my old ways. And now I'm doing miles per gallon again, and I think it's going to stick. So even like with practice, it goes in and out. I was in the pocket, and then I fell out. And then I realized I need to try this again. And so I think that's what we do as Buddhists. We try to focus on something different and more positive and more healthy. So this is kind of how I interpret this comic strip, that mindfulness breaks through our everyday life based on what we focus on. And this is kind of the idea of Namo Amida Butsu and Amida Buddha. We can focus on things, we can focus on promotions, We can focus on social media, or we can focus on being connected and being one with one another and with reality itself. And so it's a conscious shift, but it has a huge impact on us. And we don't really have to change our essence or our personality. We could stay hyper-focused and type A. And in some ways, it's a benefit because you're really giving your all to this new way of living. So it's not a negative if it's used in the right way. So I just wanted to show you this example in my everyday life of how I've really been able to change my personality and my experience of everyday life by focusing on something I can actually control, which is my miles per gallon. And it's led to, I'm just a completely different person. I'm not that guy anymore when I drive. I'm just not frustrated or angry. I don't think I've honked my horn. That's another thing. I never honk. That should have been number 8. I never honk my horn anymore because there's no need. I actually like people that cut me off and go slow. It gives me an excuse to decelerate. And the other thing I used to do when I worried about estimated time of arrival, because I would honk, I had a rule that I would never honk within a 5-mile radius of OCBC in case it was a member. So, and Rumi Nakatani told me she never honks her horn, ever. And I was like, wow, I wish I could be like Rumi, because I honk. I just don't want to do it near church. Because it'll be like, Sensei honked at me today. So, but now I don't honk my horn